Robots. The very word conjures up images of science fiction movies and visions of the future. But could our ancestors have created automatic, programmable machines hundreds or even thousands of years ago? Full-size human replicants, animals that moved by themselves, sophisticated multi-action robotic chronometers over 15 meters tall. New evidence suggests that ancient robots could have really existed. The imposing legacy of the ancient world is still evident today, but temples, palaces and tombs do not tell the full story of life as it was thousands of years ago. If we look deeper beneath the ruins, we find a world of extraordinary automated machines.
Although the ancients lacked electronics and computers, some of their automata were really surprisingly sophisticated and incorporated concepts like feedback control and programming.
We are discovering that the ability to create programmable gadgets has been around for 2 millennia. There existed automated devices that were centuries ahead of their time. And many of these breakthrough innovations gave birth to the science of robotics and to the technologies still used in automated machines today.
A lot of people think that robotics was invented at the beginning of the 20th century. But there were proto-robots. There were a lot of proto-robots around throughout the centuries for 2,000 years, and without those we wouldn't have any modern robots.
The human imagination has always dreamed of a future where we might interact with life-size human replicants. But this might not be a dream. Could it have happened hundreds of years ago? Vinci is a small town nestled in the Tuscan hills. It might have remained an insignificant dot on the map, were it not for one man, the town's most famous son, Leonardo da Vinci. The genius of Leonardo was recognized in his own time. Not only a renowned artist, he was also a gifted inventor and pioneering engineer. The Leonardo Museum in Vinci contains models of some of the most important and fantastic inventions the world has ever seen. Ingenious counterweight cranes, Leonardo's prototype helicopter, the first in history, strange and claw-like wing designs for futuristic flying machines, and large fortified tanks mounted with powerful cannons 400 years before they appeared on the battlefield. But the museum contains treasures far more valuable than these models. The manuscripts of the actual drawings and notes penned by the hand of Leonardo himself. The collection is known as the Codex Atlanticus. Contained within its pages are sketches and blueprints for hundreds of Leonardo inventions. Hidden among the pages of this text is an extraordinary find, one that challenges the history books. The pages reveal in intriguing detail the inner workings of a fully automated android, made to look like a knight.
So now what it's left us with is having to be detectives. It's a bit like an archaeological dig. We have to go in, we have to look at the drawings over and over and over again.
It was in Florence that Leonardo did much of his work. Alessandro Romanelli is a curator of the city's Leonardo Museum. It is here that robotics historians have actually reconstructed Leonardo's robot knight, based on sketches he made 500 years ago.
Leonardo dedicated himself to the project of an automaton, which is a humanoid machine.
The android's design was based on an advanced knowledge of biomechanics.
And that's the science of how our bodies move. And so he was all the time thinking about, how could I make a machine that would be like a person?
Leonardo's robot was intended to replicate human movement. Muscles, tendons and ligaments were all studied meticulously before their functions were incorporated into the robot's design.
Leonardo thought of the human body as a wonderful, perfect machine, and he tried to create a mechanical model that could reproduce the effect of human movements.
Cogs in the robot's chest were attached to axles that were wound with rope. As the key cogs rotated, the rope became unwound or wound tighter. The rope was attached to the limbs, and as the rope was pulled or released, the limb moved.
It worked through the effect of tightening and loosening the ropes to simulate the traction and straining of limbs.
Beneath the knight's armor, we can see the gears and ropes that turn to tighten and loosen the ropes attached to the arms.
We can see the wheels in the robot's chest.
The ropes were fed from the cogs in the chest, through the shoulder, and all the way down the arms. The result was that the turning of a gear produced a movement in the limb.
This would be the movement of the arm.
Put together, it produced a remarkably human result.
So what the robot can do is hug someone. So they reckoned it went up to people and hugged them.
The robot knight would have enthralled and entertained audiences wherever it went. But were there ancient robots designed for more sinister and violent purposes? The ancient Greeks lived in an age of myth and legends, a world populated by gods and monsters. But in ancient texts, there are stories of another kind of being, this one fully mechanical. Stories of robot warriors. Homer, the most famous of ancient poets and writer of the tale of Troy, tells of the god Hephaestus, the Greek god of smelting and metalwork.
He was the god of blacksmiths. He was the god of manufacturers. He was probably the first engineer ever on Earth.
Ancient texts say that Hephaestus lived high in the mountains of ancient Greece. This was where he had his forge and manufactured weapons, armor, and all things metal for the gods. He was said to have produced countless ingenious mechanical devices, but intriguingly, Homer tells us that he also made robots. They're described as having 3 legs and could move and operate independently, as if they were living beasts.
Many of the historical references which we read now seem to be fantastical or even ridiculous in the claims, but one of the things that becomes more apparent the more one delves into it is that there may well be a grain of truth in some of these claims.
But is the idea of real working android soldiers in the ancient world as far-fetched as we might think? The Greek myths tell of ancient supersized humanoid warriors.
A good example here is the man-robot android called Talos, who was made as a gift to the king of Crete.
Legend has it that Zeus, the father of the gods, gave the robot giant to King Minos of Crete. The warrior's task was to defend the island against all enemies.
Talos was claimed to be able to move, and was claimed to be able to fight, and was given to help defend the place.
Talos ran around the island 3 times a day and pelted invaders with large boulders. Was this the world's first robot warrior?
If anything, it was robotic in shape, but probably consisted of a person in a suit.
Whether the Talos existed or not, it is evidence of a fascinating discovery. Even if the ancient Greeks did not yet have the technological capability to build human replicants, they had taken a massive conceptual step. They wanted to create machines that behaved like humans. They understood that with the right technology, human robots could be constructed.
Most of the cultures in the ancient world had mythological references to robotic machines or robotic people. And there seems to be a sort of human obsession with machines that mimic the human form or animal form. They certainly were starting to put together the ground rules of robotic machines. They understood levers, pulleys. Most of the mechanical principles that we know of today were invented in those times.
The ancients clearly understood the concept of robotics. But were they able to put theoretical principles into practice? It was left to one remarkable man to fully automate the ancient world. Although we may think of robots and androids as being an invention of the 20th century, there's incredible evidence of early automated devices in ancient times. At the height of his power, the empire of Alexander the Great contained much of the known world, and perhaps